Robert has an unusual sponsorship message tonight. Here's what he says. Compare the sentence structure of these two famous quotes. Here's the first one. If, to expose the fraud and imposition of monarchy, to promote universal peace, civilization, and commerce, and to break the chains of political superstition and raise degraded man to his proper rank, if these things be libelous, let the name of the libeler be engraved on my tomb. End quote. And as Robert points out, that was Thomas Paine in 1792. That was his response to sedition and libel charges while he was in the process of escaping Great Britain. Robert goes on. Here is number 2. Quote, but if by a liberal they mean someone who looks ahead and not behind, someone who welcomes new ideas without rigid reactions, someone who cares about the welfare of the people, their health, their housing, their schools, their jobs, their civil rights, and their civil liberties, someone who believes that we can break through the stalemate and suspicions that grip us in our policies abroad, if that is what they mean by a liberal, then I'm proud to say I'm a liberal. End quote. John Kennedy, September 14th, 1960, upon accepting the Liberal Party nomination for president in New York City. And Robert finishes up this in memory of these two great men. All right. Thank you, Robert. I think we need quotations, among other things, from people who have done their part to establish and cause this republic to flourish, not some filthy fucking degenerate like Donald Trump, who is trying still to tear it down. And if his ability to skate free, the slippery fucker, to skate free from all sorts of attempts to restrict a convicted felon, someone who tried to overthrow the government, a rapist, from ascending to the presidency, and nothing seemed to work. With the cooperation of media, the cooperation of the courts, the cooperation of this filthy Christian religion as it is currently constructed in this country, with the cooperation of the political class, with all that cooperation, this rotten son of a bitch, Trump, escaped charges of attempting to overthrow the government. Like I said, I know you have heard all about it by now, heard the outrage, heard the disgust. This is the president of the fucking United States? Where are we? What has become of all the noble aspirations that this country had at one time? It's in our documents. We still haven't fulfilled all of them. Hell, we haven't fulfilled most of them. But at least it was written down in a way that said, okay, this is what we're going to try to do. This is what we're going to try to do. So it's taken us 250 years to get where we are. And now we are poised to go abso-fucking-lutely backwards because of this monster Trump. I just wish I could scream I don't know, berate, scream, punch every single son of a bitch who refused to go to the polls and vote the Democratic ticket because they were pissed off about a single issue. They were pissed off at Biden, pissed off at Kamala, or because Kamala Harris was a woman of color. You fucking people, I know you don't listen to this podcast, but maybe somebody will turn you on to this little message. You people who did this, not only do you have no honor no moral position. You have no dignity. You have no respect for those of us who did vote against this son of a bitch. You have no respect for anything. I don't quite understand why you did what you did, but I think you are going to pay an unfucking real price for your stupidity and your snotty attitude. Well, I'm not going to vote for him. Fuck him. So Trump filed a motion to drop all four, not the delay, drop. And we can pin some of this back on Merrick Garland, that useless son of a bitch who I thought was going to be a good attorney general. He waited how fucking long? It wasn't until Congress decided to investigate what happened on January 6th. Smith filed a motion to drop all 4 felony charges against the orange son of a bitch, all connected to the orange bastard's efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election, and then the deadly, violent, horrifying January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. With all those Christian fuckers with their Christian flags and their crosses and their putrid action and their disgusting comments, raving and yelling about Jesus Trump. Oh, my God. The indictment on Trump on all 4 of these felonies goes back to August of last year, 2023. August of last year. Conspiracy to defraud the United States. Conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding. Obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding. And conspiracy against rights. And then the case was put on hold for months while Trump's filthy, stinking, fucking team of jack-off lawyers, oh, shame on you, son of a bitches. They spent months arguing that their criminal client could not be prosecuted. Could not be prosecuted. So the indictments were historic. The first ever accusation that someone who lost a presidential election tried every dirty, illegal, filthy, stinking, maneuverable trick to try to cling to power. Everything. With the cooperation of the legal profession cooperated with this fucking bum. So many aspects of the judicial system cooperated with this fucking bum. According to NBC, this dismissal also marks an historic moment. Oh, really? Yeah, you see, 50 years after Nixon was forced by lawmakers from both parties to resign the presidency. Can you believe that? Republicans, 50 years ago. Jesus Christ, I remember that as clear as if it were yesterday. Do you? So 50 years ago, the leaders of both parties went to Nixon and said, look, dude, get the fuck out of town. Resign. So here we are 50 years later, and half of American voters have decided to give Trump the presidency again in spite of his convictions, the charges, the fact that he is a fucking bum and a grifter, the fact that he cost several 100,000 people to die during COVID, the fact that he's an incompetent, lying son of a bitch, and yet half the people, well, not quite half. Not quite half. Trump doesn't have a fucking mandate. I don't care what he says. What, 49.7% or some shit voted for him? What do those 49% of people who voted for him use for brains? It's worse than that. It's not that they don't think. It's just that they are fuckheads. Complete fuckheads. I mean, if you don't want to vote for someone because you don't agree with them politically, okay. If you do want to vote for someone because you agree with them politically, okay. But people in this country who decided to vote for a convicted felon, a rapist, a liar, a grifter, someone who is not worth the powder to blow him to hell, and millions of people voted for this fuckwad? Wow. Okay. In the filing today, Smith's office wrote this, quote, the government's position, that would be Jack Smith's, the government's position on the merits of the defendant's prosecution has not changed. But the circumstances have. End quote. And Smith wrote that he was filing this petition with the court to dismiss the charges ahead of Trump's inauguration, which is in line with the Justice Department's long-standing position that it can't charge a sitting president. That's not in the fucking Constitution. That's not what the framers wrote. Well, if one of our presidents commits felonies and is convicted, or if he tries to overthrow the government, well, that's okay. None of that shit is written down in our documents. And if all that happens, did the framers say it? If all that happens, well, you know, since he was the president and he's running for president and he got reelected, well, that puts him above the law. We're going to make exception for one fucking person in the entire country. That's not part of the Constitution. So the fact that the Justice Department has a, quote, long-standing position that it can't charge a president, end quote. In my ignorance, I would ask, why the fuck not? What is this shit? What kind of a civics lesson have we all gotten over this past year and a half, 2 years? 2.5 years. I mean, starting with the attempt to destroy America that Trump and his brown shirts tried to bring about. Starting with that, January 6, 2021, watching, listening, paying attention. And yet realizing at the same time that half the people who voted for this son of a bitch because of our electoral system is going to be president again. Hi, Truth Seekers. Mike Malloy here. You know, the Progressive Voices Network brings you commercial-free commentary from today's leading progressive radio hosts and pundits, like me, Mike Malloy, 24 hours a day. I'm not your typical old guy from the 80s or the 90s talk radio host, and Progressive Voices is not your typical talk radio network. It's a listener-supported nonprofit with no corporate control whatsoever over our broadcast. So hosts like me, Mike Malloy, are free to rant and scream and carry on about whatever we like. We're often controversial, but we're never boring. Weeknights, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West on the Progressive Voices Network. Always progressive, always on. I'm Mike Malloy. Keep it lit.